So I'll go into the history a little bit, Harold.
Yeah, welcome, welcome very, very much to Conversations. We have a program. Unfortunately, we lost the ability to have some graphics we wanted to have included in this, but it's to celebrate with our friend down in Virginia Beach, that's Stephen Neskis, who is coming into us by Skype. The fact that today, the 7th of June, there's a major meeting of a group called Exponential Finance, which is part of the larger movement that involves Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, who we've got in the background, in terms of a major development of people who are understanding the exponential increasing capability of the information systems that is roiling everything, as it were. And that's being launched today in Manhattan downtown. And in this, we want to call attention to that. It'll be this today, this will be aired on the 7th. And so in that instance, I'm calling into this now. Then Stephen Neskis down in Virginia. Stephen, good to see you. Say hello.
Hello, New York.
Okay, it's worked.
New York.
Okay, now listen, Stephen, you and I both have been interested in, I've been interested in Ray Kurzweil since 70s and everything. He's a major reader and intellectual. He wrote The Singularity is Near and The Age of Intelligent Machines, The Age of Spiritual Machines, a major voice in terms of understanding the development of information technologies in an exponential way. You've been studying it. Why don't you share with us some of the things you've been finding and the wonders and the incredible capability that is contained within the system exponential as a word and as a part of information technology, particularly as it applies to information technology and all of the things that flow from that involving the all kinds of television and all kinds of internet activity, and also the intellectual process itself and keeping track of the literature, and the implications of the term exponential.
Sure. First of all, I want to apologize to our audience that we don't have the video or the graphics, because that really was an important part to set what's happening at the Expo of Exponential Finance.
Mm-hmm.
Peter and Ray Kurzweil created a school called Singularity University, and it's in California, and they have expanded into exponential businesses. One is exponential finance, and a couple other ones is exponential computers and a couple other exponential companies. So the video that we were going to set up was talking about what they're trying to set up in this video is what is exponential, and so very few people understand the exponential mechanism that's happening now. And they related it kind of like what happened when the dinosaurs got hit 250,000 years ago when when we first came into existence, when the asteroid hit those dinosaurs, they didn't even see it coming.
Well, that was 65 million years ago, but that's a fine point. Yeah.
Years, right?
Yeah.
But and there was these little fairy animals running around that actually we supposedly came from, and the first mammals, right? They did not know it, and what's happening now in this exponential business mechanism that's happening is kind of like that. These most of the businesses, our political institutions, have these outdated modalities that will be just like the asteroid hitting the Earth, destroying the established corporations and institutions as we know them now. They will be just obliviated, and they won't see it coming.
Yeah, this is, and Ray Kurzweil has been following this exponential development for a very long time. And he, if I may, Stephen, just
Sure.
interject, we've done programs with Ray, and I got a great respect for him. We've met a few times and everything. Major intellectual. And he wrote a book in 1988 and it was called the Age of Intelligent Machines, and that
Right.
was before Watson or anything. But he was pointing out, as had been noted by cyberneticists anyway, all during the 20th century, that the development of information technology was not developing arithmetically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's developing exponentially, doubling each period of time, and that it doesn't have much effect in the early stages of. But then when you get to be where you're on the other, if you keep doubling it like on a chessboard, or like that, keep doubling, it becomes astronomical, the effects of it, and that's the way in which the internet and all of the things involved with information technologies, which have only just come to us very, very recently, historically, have been developed. But in the age of intelligent machines, he made a projection based on his understanding of the significance of this exponential factor in terms of information technology, that when the world's great the capability of the computing capability of a program to defeat the world's chess champion, which would have been a real task like that.
Right.
He predicted from 10 years out, within about 1 month of when that actually occurred, by reading the exponential increasing capability of information technology, and that it came out just in 1988, and then in 10 years' time there came out the Age of Spiritual Machines. He had
Right.
predicted that within about 1 month or two of its actual occurrence. And then in the Age of Spiritual Machines, that process was heralding what is called the Internet and all of the information technologies that have affected everything in an
Right.
exponential way, which isn't just arithmetic, like we think of the material world as progressing arithmetically one at a time. It is predicted in an exponential way. That's what they're celebrating downtown today on the 7th of June.
Right. They're really celebrating exponential thinking.
Yeah.
Our minds are not adapted to this exponential thinking. We're actually thinking more on a linear space, and
Right.
we've been just going on this linear line for a long time, trodden along, and then little by little, we had some things that helped us expedite this exponential thinking. And if you start with like the steam engine, before the steam engine, we basically 100 miles was our place that we just kind of hung around. We didn't get to go out too much farther than that, and that's actually a large distance. So things in your little village, you went out and you hunted, and you got you got your food, and you celebrated a little bit, and you made some babies, and basically that was your life. And then here comes the steam machine that could do so many things, and we actually could have a surplus of food, so we could be able to have some more leisure time to let us ponder and to have this thing called imagination, which I haven't heard talk too much, even in Peter's, but they're kind of talking about that. But the imagination is the gift that humans have.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
And now that we have this leisure time, we've been able to use it in technology, and it really has been going gangbusters since then.
One thing I'd like to say along with that is, it seems to me, as I understand it in any case, that the thing exponential, you said that we'd done it for a long time, that would have been a couple 100,000 years.
Yeah, kind of linear, not exponentially. No. We just walked around linearly, and we just only had a small little area that we kind of did the same thing all the time.
But the exponential increasing, the exponential phenomena didn't apply to the material world. It didn't apply mostly to all of history until now. It was only
Right,
with the information technology and the computing, which only happens yesterday. It didn't happen in the 18th century or so forth. And all the material things like houses and things had to be built within a context that still holds for a great deal of the material world. What it applies to is the world of information technology and computing. We didn't have a computer.
Computing and information, Harold. This is something that I kind of want to share about exponential. It can be related in many factors, and even, for instance, there was these, and Peter is into making satellites in a small way. There was this big company, and they put like $7 or $8 billion, and they had these satellites all around the world, and they were getting it up. It took them about 8 years. But they didn't realize that there's exponential growth on this thing called cell towers were going up. And they actually created so many cell towers that it ruined their business model. And they were out of date. They just didn't have the viewpoint of this exponential growth.
But that's modern. That's
I'm sorry?
That's modern times.
That's modern
That's
times.
coming into times when they could.
Let's go back a little bit, and let me show you exponential. And it's not quite in the doubling, but it's still exponential in the capacity of what it could be at that particular time. So let's just take, for instance, the steam engine. It was able to plow and make more and more food. So most of the time, civilization would grow and grow, and then it would collapse on its own success because they couldn't feed the people. So when we had more leisure time, we were able to discover more things and build boats and do more pondering. I mean, the Greeks did this very, very much. They said that they wouldn't need slaves if machines could do all the toiling, but they had to be free to be able to ponder, and they were great thinkers, and they were able to create amazing things because they had that free time to think. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, but I don't.
Is to understand. So let me give you another example.
I don't think their developments were turned into exponential. There wasn't an exponential process going on.
Let me show you how that.
Well, I would submit it wasn't. It wasn't exponential until our time.
Not true.
Because it was only with the computer and with the arithmetics and with the modern ability to manipulate or to use information itself and computing that you're going to get an exponential development in our times, not any time in history, and it still applies to a great deal of the material world. Buildings take 10 months to put up. They're not something that just come up like in an algorithm that you can write and have become characteristic of building a new program. You get cell phones, and all these developments relate to that capability of in our time. But the material world still exists.
Sure. And so let me give you another example of an exponential growth. We were able to deliver the mail, and the mail was snail mail. It was by horseback, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they made this thing called the telegraph.
Yeah,
and, in a nanosecond, it went clear across the whole country.
That's true. That's true.
So that's exponential growth in technology.
Well, all right. Yeah, that's beginning to herald it. Yeah.
Go across the world, basically, when people, used to use horseback and take them months and months to do so, they could do it literally a few days.
Yeah.
And then we got an airplane, and that got us to do it in a few hours. So that's kind of exponential growth too. You just can't say it's the true doubling of straight up, exponential growth. But that is exponential growth in that context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bucky Fuller said that we had,
God bless him.
had a graph of Bucky. That the haves and have-nots that you like to bring out.
Yeah.
Since 1970, that there's more people that have than don't have, like a light bulb, a housing, and some food.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Yeah.
So we're.
That was, if I may, that was registering what is called a have and a have-not. What percentage of the world population could be seen to be a have in percentage terms over time?
Right.
Which is an interesting concept. How do you define it and everything? He defined it and came to the conclusion that it was growing very, very rapidly, and that there had never been anything in all of human history except a few that were haves, kings in the castle and so forth.
Right.
I guess they'd have warm water, but you had to have a whole bunch of logs to eat it. You couldn't have warm water all over the place and all that. But you would and he came to the conclusion that for a lot of people that were into the research and everything, that the percentage of the world population that could be seen in terms of capability, not the reality, the material, historical reality inherited out of history, but the capability was such that we crossed the 50% mark going up on an algorithmic change chart around 1970, about the time of Woodstock.
Right,
and he claimed that that's really what was being felt at that period when they had Woodstock and everybody was feeling something. It wasn't just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We were transcending our capability to provide life support for a higher percentage of the world population than had ever been the case. We had crossed the 50% mark heading up.
Right.
Toward everybody,
that
which
curve,
we're
if anybody can see
now.
the curve,
yeah,
it's always been going up. You know, like stock market always has these big dips and ups and downs and stuff like that. But the trend has always been curving up, and it's kind of straightening out, and we're going to have, this time that we go into, a singularity, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
This is going to be very disruptive to a lot of businesses, to politicians, and to customers.
Don't they?
And they're going to have this disruptive stress that's going to be occurring.
I think we're experiencing
it.
Yeah, now.
And to some people, it's going to be an opportunity.
Yeah.
And let me give you an example of that. In 1996, the market cap of Kodak was like 28 billion, and they employed about 140,000 people in 1996. And 10 years before then, or 20 years, I couldn't remember. Anyway? There was a man that brought them this thing called digital camera.
Yeah, I remember. You used to have the Kodak, Yeah, right.
And basically Kodak had 80 or 90% of the market at that time.
Yes, indeed. And
that everything was, Kodak film, Kodak development, Kodak in the film industry, the whole bit, So he says, well, the board of directors look at this and says, well, when is this going to be good to go? Because this could be like interfering with our business. So, they kind of buried it. But 20 years later, because they did that, and they couldn't think exponentially, they were a linear company, even though that their slogan was, everything's like a Kodak moment, is to make it as easy as pie, 20 years later, they're going bankrupt with only 17,000 employees. Because this thing called digital camera took over.
Absolutely.
And at that same year, in April 2012, Facebook was buying this company called Instagram for $1 billion. So there's a disruption. Here's a perfect example of a big company thinking linearly. They just couldn't see outside the box, and they got swallowed up and destroyed, bankrupt. And
it's going on. It's going on en masse now.
It's going to happen more and more.
And the rate of the increase is increasing all the time.
It's
not letting up. And so it's a major thing roiling the whole world, and they're considering that downtown today on the 7th of June. The people that are interested in how that can be understood and with responsibility utilized to the benefit of the population. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, here's the new mass extinction. Okay, in 10 years, it's predicted that 40% of the Fortune 500 companies will no longer exist.
What percent? What percent?
Basin Olin's School of Fast Company. And in the April edition of 2011, page 121.
What percentage, Steve?
40% of the future 500 companies will no longer exist.
Wow.
And the average lifespan of a company in 1920 let's say AT&T. You know, everybody had AT&T,
Absolutely,
right?
solid as
They
a
were
rock.
like 67 years,
Mm-hmm.
and today, um, today it's only like 15 years that a company will be on the top.
Yeah.
That's how fast that technology would overtake their own
Yeah.
invention. Okay.
Right. Uh-huh.
So you know, you always
Yeah.
complain, my God, I just learned this program and they got a new program and they want you to put this
Yeah, that's because
into it.
I'm older. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
not
it's
just because
harder.
you're
The
older.
younger you are, the better,
This is the
easier.
stress that,
Yeah.
that humanity
Mm-hmm.
is under right now. Things are
Yeah.
happening so quick and
Yeah.
developments are happening so
And so
quick.
dramatically,
Oh,
because
my
it's all,
goodness.
it's not algorithmic, it's exponential. Yeah.
It's exponential.
Yeah.
So you know, person like why I dress like this and not in a suit and tie is because a guy like this is going to come up. He's the millennial, and millennials are described from 33 or 36 years old. I think it's 33 on down to the 18-year-olds. There are about 50 million in the job market right now. And these people don't care about suits and ties. They don't care. They want to serve the community. They want to be a part of the community, but they don't want to play this game. And they're reinventing the wheel. And, you know, I've kind of been a millennial at heart and been developing those mechanisms that will transcend the old modalities that haven't served us anymore. And one thing, and you agree with me, and you've taught me this, okay, about transcending material scarcity. We have to have that under every institution, under every political party. Every school should have a sign that says, welcome, we have transcended material scarcity. And let's go out and redesign the world so we can all live in a much more stress-free, you know, not so much stress, more free time, so we can do the important things like we're doing now, discussing, dreaming, using our imagination. That's the most important thing that we have.
Yeah, and it all has implications for the economic order writ large on a planetary scale.
Mm-hmm.
And it also signals the fact that that trend is not only on the destructive side, apparently species lethal, the weapons that underlay the historical pattern of realpolitik, or whoever at the biggest club could hit others on the head and conquer and that kind of stuff. It's called realpolitik. It's
Yes.
informed the whole geopolitical history of the world,
Mm-hmm.
more or less. And the weapons now are apparently, I don't know, it should be chapter and verse, but they're species lethal.
Absolutely.
The weapons
And
are
not
able,
only that, but we
in
have
one fell swoop, they're able to wipe out the Homo sapiens species, apparently.
Yes.
Now
And
that's
not only
that's
that,
a
but
rending
we have other
historical importance, yeah.
things. Yes. Well, of course. I mean, that's been with us for a while.
But underscore,
but
that's only the capability, okay?
Mhm.
It's not
Sure.
the reality, obviously.
Yeah,
You've got
if
the
they push the
lingering,
buttons, it's the reality. If
but it's a
once we have-
capability. But
yeah.
we were protected in our impotence. We were trying to do that in the Second World War, and we were protected in our impotence at killing each other. We
Right.
would have if we could have. We would have unleashed
Well,
the weapons
that's
in the
reason why
Struman
everybody has gotten a bomb, because now nobody can use it. If everybody has it, nobody will want to push the button. Because they
Capability
realize
is still
the-
there. The
well,
capability
they
is still
realize
there.
the ramifications of that. But we have other things that people have put their heads in the sand, and the pioneers, which is a group of people that talk about the land and stuff like that. It's about global warming. We have never lived as a civilization with 3 degrees above of you know, and we're going to go to 2 point something. We're trying to hold it to 2 point something. We've never ever experienced 3 point degree, you know, rise. And if it gets down to 5, then it will quickly rise to 10, and then all living matter will be destroyed.
No,
So-
I'm sorry. I got to. You're not going to destroy all living matter.
All living matter,
No, you're-
like
you-
90%, 99.9% of matter that we use to survive. all like the dinosaurs, a mass extinction. Okay, not
Well,
everything.
no,
You're
they
right.
call it the
There'll
sixth
be
grade.
some slime, and then maybe intelligent
Yeah.
life will come back.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think we can destroy life. I mean,
Life
that's
as
a
we
more
know it,
precious
okay?
last time.
I'm
They
talking
could just
about life
wipe
as we
us
know
out,
it.
like
Yes, there will
the
be
dinosaurs
slime
were
and
wiped out.
some mold, under a
Yeah.
mile deep of rock.
And give it a few billion years, it might
give
pick
it a
up
few-
again. Yeah. No, seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, absolutely. But this.
99.999% of all species that have ever existed on this planet have gone extinct.
I know.
I would
Isn't
know.
that crazy?
That's scientifically understandable and a reality.
Well, at this expo that they're having, this
Yes.
exponential
Yeah, spell it out a little. Yeah.
expo on the 6th and 7th, I believe it is, right? They're talking about all this, the different companies that are becoming exponential and labs, so they can see how they can utilize them. And Peter wants to work with people that have a billion, that have an idea of reaching 1 billion people.
Yeah, and that would be Peter Diamantes. Do you have his
Yes.
book? Do you have the book with you or not?
I didn't
Forgot.
bring the book.
But he's written a
I
book that's a
apologize for that.
bestseller, and it's
Yeah.
called Abundance, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And-
Abundance, and a how-to book called Bold.
Yeah,
Abundance,
that's a new
the
one,
future
the
is
Bold.
better than you think, and Bold,
Yeah.
which is two great books that are needed to read. I think they're kind of important. But,
Yeah, and
yeah,
the two of them, Kurzweil and Diamantes, they've teamed up together in a really important thing. They started the Singularity University. The
Right.
concept of the singularity, which has been introduced by Ray Kurzweil, who is a co-worker with Diamantes, who we see over my left shoulder. They're a great team, and they got their singularity right next to Google. Google's on board, and the major information technology people are understanding and copying too, as they say in the street language, to this lesson that Ray Kurzweil has been pioneering, and now is having application to the material world and the business world, because it's affecting virtually everything that has to do with information technology.
Right, and I'm hoping to be able to work with Ray Kurzweil and Peter sooner than later, because that my design has been to reach 1 billion people, and they're the only people that I know are talking the same language. I have developed a mechanism and a system that will exponentially grow, and I think one area that they haven't really touched on, that I think I could really be be service to them, would be the financial mechanism that will allow for all people to own the capital production. Because
that's a biggie. Yeah.
Oh, it is, because if a few people, for instance, when Instagram was bought, okay, for that $1 billion at the time that Kodak was going south, right? They had 17,000 employees. Instagram was bought, and you know how many employees they had?
No idea at all.
13.
Wow, that many. What did they do with all those people?
And so what's going to happen? The technology doesn't need people. We're gonna have so many automated things that if the people don't own the capital of production, then all the money will go straight to only a few people's hands.
Well, that's what it's doing now.
Yeah,
that's what it's doing now. Bernie brings that out very well in his stance in the current presidential election, and it's true. It always has, but it's now at an inordinate degree that way. And the capital assets that are that represent the material that is creating the wealth increasingly without input from labor is responsible for the production, and those who own that have a right to have an increasing capability to have the income derived from that, and they're becoming overwhelmingly wealthy at the top, 1/10 of 1% owning as much as a whole nation of people, and it's getting to be absurd.
Yeah, and so my focus is really on the financial part of getting that integrated into the exponential mechanisms. And right now, if you think about it, the velocity, I have a chapter in my book, and pretty soon that book will be coming out, and we'll talk about it on the
Yeah, I know
next
you're
show.
working on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on it, and one of my chapters is the velocity of money.
Yeah.
And if we all own the technology, then the velocity of money goes around to every part of our businesses as we have been invested in it. A good site to look at this is a way.
Yeah.
Is CESJ.org.
Oh, that's
Center
Norman,
for
yeah,
Economic
Norman
and Social
Curlin, yeah.
Justice. Norman Curlin
Yeah, good.
heads that.
Uh-huh.
And it has great potential in what I call a bridging to the point where there are no more what I call economic slaves. And if somebody is a worker and an employee, then you have an economic slave. But if we're all owners and we democratically vote in who's best to do what jobs, and we have that capability, and we all are enjoying the fruits from those businesses. And my system that I'm developing actually allows that we all own all the businesses, and that all patents, all technologies are in trust by the people, because a patent is a license to steal, and many corporations are showing that. Like this one guy, he's been in the news. He went and bought the patents for a drug that was only a few cents.
Yeah, right.
And
So
he
$400.
jacked it up like 5,000
Yeah,
times,
right.
And it was a very important drug that serviced a lot of people.
Well, that's all the market will bear is, you know,
Well,
they take that position, and people are in that position. They will pridefully take that kind of a position to maximize, above all else, profit for them.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's why they say, capitalism is very bad. But there is a hybrid, and I call it the collective, collaborative, capitalistic model, where we're not wasting resources, but we're all enjoying the fruits from all the technologies. And they say 40% of all companies will go under by that age. I'm going to predict that it's not going to be 40% of companies. I predict it's going to be maybe 20. I should say, add 20% more than that. I say 60%. I say 60% of companies will be dissolved because the people will be owners of the capital production.
Well, how is that ownership?
That many companies
how are you going to get?
Okay,
okay. Well, you've got people who traditionally people who cared about the least advantaged, which have been throughout all of human history, the vast majority of the population of the time were have-nots. How are you going to have them become haves?
Well, there's a new kind of system. It's the blockchain system that Bitcoin is
I hear
utilized.
that's part of that Bitcoin thing. Yeah, that's a little trick.
And this new technology is going to afford us to have a different way of using money. And when we own it, and this is the brilliant part, when we're a billion people and we buy a billion of something, we automatically make a whole lot of money.
Where do you get the billion? I don't know what's a billion.
Well, there's about 9 billion or 8 point something.
Well, we're heading
people.
for 9 about 2020. We're about 7 now. It's a little over 7. We're heading for 9 around 1920 or 2020.
2020.
I think so. Yeah.
So if a billion people is not a lot to think of.
Seems like a lot to me, but yeah.
But I know, because again, you're thinking linearly.
Yeah, I tend to do that being older. Yeah.
And when you think exponentially, a billion people it's very realistic in our thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you have a billion, you say, hey, I want a billion iPhones, or I want a billion Android phones. Maybe I'll separate them, just have half and half because I have competition. And I give a prize for the competition for the best inventors. But instead of it going to be owned by a corporation, it is owned by the people. And my mechanism does that. That I'll be launching probably, the book comes out in 12 months. And then we're looking at another 24 months before the first one actually comes out.
Yeah,
to
give
do
some lead
Exponential
time,
growth.
yeah.
But I can think in about 5 to 10 years, we could have a billion people And what
I
would
see.
happen
5 to 10 years.
if Google says your billion is going to be going through their porthole? They will give us a percentage of their profits, and we will serve them, and they will serve us.
Well,
And
that
then
could
one
be
day we'll
profit
just buy them
sharing.
out
That
completely.
could be traditional profit sharing or something.
Yeah, yeah, and I see a mechanism where, you'll be taking 2 to 3 months off a year, so you can keep your body, mind, and spirit up as well, because it's important that depending on what part of your life cycle you're at. If you're having children, you may want to only work 3 days a week and be there for or you may want to work 7 days a week and be there for the children when they come home from school. So, then you take a group vacation for 2 to 3 months, and that way you can bond together and have, the special life. And eventually, as things become more and more automated, we're going to have to do less and less. But that mechanism really, really has to be there.
Well, that's a big one. Over the centuries, there are people, let's just say, generally thinking the left. You have the left. You've had Karl Marx, and you had communism. You had a lot of socialism. There's still a lot of people who are observing the human condition and seeing tremendous inequality, people starving needlessly, and that sort of thing on the left. And they would tend to associate the problem with the fact that all the profits are going to the capitalists who own the assets. And you're saying you want to have the people at large own the capital assets that are producing the wealth, but the system is geared now to benefit those who already own the capital. They can get more and own more and more. And the socialists would like to do away, many of them, or traditionally, with the private sector itself. Do away with the market. Just do away with the market and let the central government take care of everything, and everybody will get a place to live and that sort of thing.
But
in
the
what they call
problem
a
is with that, the
socialist
central
model.
government is actually us, and if you left it up to just a few people, as my dad would say, son, do you know anybody that's been handed the honey jar that didn't put their finger in it and taste it? And this is what happens. The Department of Defense budget is so huge that there is just so much abuse and waste.
Yes.
Nobody even knows how to regulate it. They've got no contract bids and all these kind of things.
Yes.
We, the people, have to have a responsibility in also keeping up with what's going on.
But this idea is the thing to do is to socialize everything, have it all just in one fell swoop.
But not in the way you're speaking of. It's not by a government.
Well, do away
with
the private sector.
If the government does it, Harold, if I may.
Yeah.
You have a thing called Russia. Okay, that's a government.
Well, that's a system that failed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it becomes an old boy network. You cannot do it that way. This thing has to be led in small circles. Let's say I'll just use the 10-10 rule. You have 10 employees, and out of the 10 employees that's doing this particular task, they pick the top 3 employees that can do it the best, and they say, we want one of them to represent us in the next part of the cycle. And it goes on like this until one is voted into the board of directors, or several are voted into the board of directors. And then you have like you own the banking institutions too. So a couple of those board members from the banks, the best minds, will come in and help you say, this is the way you integrate the finance into that. And then they come back from doing that back to their jobs. There is no more hierarchy and lowerarchy. I don't think that you can say either one is bad. I think a hybrid would be more specific.
Probably, you're right. You're probably right. It would be.
And you have good collaborative social network that runs that capitalistic approach.
Do you have capitalism and socialism combined in one system? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, it's a hybrid.
That's sort of what we have in a way, except now all the benefits go to the capitalists, practically.
Yeah, well, we have not a socialistic society.
Right.
We have a dictatorial society that we elect people that dictate to us what the rules and regulations are.
We may end up with a President Trump.
You never know. You never know about those things. But to say that 50% of the people don't vote now is because they're so fed up with the way the system is. And if you look, let's just say you look at Congress and Senate, the way that the bills are written there is by the lobbyists. The lobbyists are being manipulated by the corporations. Since we are not the corporations and there's only a few top level corporate people on the board,
Yeah.
they go around each other's board and you say, what do you think I'm worth, John? Coca-Cola goes, oh, I think you're worth $20 million.
No, but they have control over what goes over the airwaves. They have control over the way capital is formed, what is invested in, how the contracts are written in terms of everything. They have control over that, and it's becoming more and more concentrated all the time. At the very, very just singularly top 1/10 or 1/100th of 1% is getting everything.
And there's a billionaire that
or has access to it.
Actually,
a few crumbs go down to the folks.
We better watch out. The pitchforks are coming for us.
Well,
and I don't want that to happen, but because that would be anarchy. I think we can transcend this into where the people are starting to say, "Hey, guess what? We own the corporations now." And this is the bill we want you to have.
Are you talking about the people who represent the leading edge will say they represent the people because it's all over television, and you're saying something about the people being the mass of the people?
Yeah, one day
have some say. They've never had any say, really.
Well, that's because people haven't
They're led around
a system
like
I have developed. There is something close to it, and that's the Mondragon group.
Mondragon's a cooperative, and how do we designate that? I know that is recognized Richard Wolff and other socialist or left people, and it seems to me most of the people who are really concerned for the least among us are on the left.
Well,
it seems to
be.
And the right is not particularly concerned with the least advantaged people. They're considered with the people that have gentrified,
top corporations.
And getting a little bit for themselves by being part of a system and so forth.
Right.
But
the collaborative, like Mondragon, has individual groups of businesses, and they have even a research and development company.
Yeah.
And they have done collaborations outside it. I'm going to have to get with Richard Wolff to a little bit.
He's very, very smart, very smart, and very dedicated.
To talk to him about the Mondragon group a little bit, and I think I'm going to have him as one of my people that I interview for the book. I'd like to be able to have Ray Kurzweil, his input as well as Peter's, and I think Richard Wolff would be another important person to have in that.
Well, back when you were talking, you used the term, if I may, you used the term "the people own everything." You said like that. That's the step. And you were talking before about how they could have ownership, and you mentioned Norman. Norman's a dear friend of mine from way back and everything, but he was inspired by Lewis Kelso.
Binary economics.
Lewis Kelso.
And that's
but Lewis Kelso. No, wait a minute. Let me just make a point. Lewis Kelso wrote a book, and the title of the book was "The Capitalist Manifesto." The left has been informed by the Communist Manifesto, and Lewis wrote a book called "The Capitalist Manifesto," saying that we have to have a way of forming capital in a way where the ownership of the capital, the ownership of a private property capital asset would be made available to the people as a way of distributing effective buying power or demand. The major problem confronting the world economy now, and this is reflecting Mr. Thomas Piketty, who all of the establishment figures are reading, the main problem is we have a capability, as you and I talked about before, we have the capability of destroying the species for the first time since about 1970.
Right.
If you go to Fuller and to some of these other people, we have a capability of liberating everybody on the living side, but we don't have a way, and it involves qualitative new capability to provide through technological systems, life support.
And that's what I'm creating here.
All right, now, but the point is that I'll make the point. The point is that we have the major problem is they do not. We have a capability of providing for. We have a capability we're not able to do because we're caught up in outdated thinking. And the main problem is they don't have a way of distributing effective buying power to the people who are no longer needed on the assembly line as a way of having them imbued with money in order to buy what is able to produce of the good way of leading a life of a have. They don't have enough way of distributing
demand. But there's something here that I have to
and that could be a private property ownership. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay. There's two problems. Okay, one is that
many more.
Well, I mean, the two major problems that I see with that is that I'm creating a mechanism that transcends what that you're complaining about. There's no system out there to bring it. Utilizing systems like Norm Kurland's Center for Economic and Social Justice, CESJ.org.
Yeah.
Or
he's looking at the Federal Reserve.
I think that may actually prolong the problem, and I'll tell you why. That the people have to own all the production. The corporations can't own it. It has to be owned by everybody, and the reason why is because, and they say 40% of the companies are going to go by the wayside. I predict it's going to be 60%, if not more, going to go by the wayside, and we're only going to need these finite pieces of mechanisms of companies that will bring capital to everybody so they can utilize it. But when you have all these corporations competing with now free money, then you're going to have this big influx of consumption.
What are you talking about, free money? I don't understand.
Well,
where does that come from?
Well, I call it free money because
but what do you mean?
By Norm's, by the way Norm has set it up, they want to democratize the Federal Reserve and loan each citizen about a $2 trillion economy, which is about $7,000 per man, every man, woman, and child.
Homestead Act, they call it, don't they?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, they refer to the Homestead principle that we applied in the 60s.
In there. They loan each citizen $7,000, not give them, but loan them, and it was privately insured. It's a valid investment. So I could do Con Ed, or in my area, it's another name, okay? But let's say the electrical grid and the water grid. But I couldn't do my own hot dog shop because 90% of the businesses fail and nobody would insure it, and they would pay it back in forward earnings of that company.
Well, that's
and
a
you
good.
radically have to change the way companies actually do business. It wouldn't be the new model, the old model that they have in the stock market. It would be they would borrow the money and they would give a complete 100% dividends out to the people. And so anyway,
that makes sense.
Would just go out and buy stuff.
Yeah.
There's a problem with that, Harold.
Yeah, Charles de Gaulle said, you can. The people have to have a way. You can't depend upon past savings as you have done by the people who pile it up. You have to have a system whereby the mass of the people have a way of obtaining a capital asset that is going to pay for itself out of its future earnings. That's the way.
And they tell you there's a problem in that, and I'll tell you. And let me go to you.
First of all, you got a 60% failure. It's a problem because they're all going to fail.
Well,
that's one thing to take
that's part of the problem.
That's a rather large part.
But somebody's going to insure it, supposedly.
Well, that's AIG had to come in and do it because they didn't set up a thing in the. Lewis wanted to set up a thing called Capital Diffusion Reinsurance Corporation to reinsure the industry insurance against loss. Because dealing with the various levels of risk is what the market's all about.
And there's a problem inherently with that. And I think this is why people would insure it or not insure it and stuff like that. But if there's a reinsurance, then you really the insurance companies don't have any problems. They can
That's
insure
right.
whatever they want.
Well, that's
and
it, but that was
there's
not.
an inherent problem in
Yeah, but that
right
wasn't
there.
set up. That was not set up after the crash and everything. It was not set up to have a capital diffusion reinsurance agency next to the Federal Reserve, part of the federal structure. They didn't set it up because there were ideological interests against doing that.
And there's a reason for it. Look at all the insurance companies like AIG.
AIG is what they had to go to.
Well, no, they failed.
Greenberg.
And the government had to back it up. So we have
in the end,
did have the government's always been the last buck. Okay. Yeah. To either say we'll save the company or we'll want. But if there's no skin in the game and an insurance company knows that they can be bailed out by the government, then they're not really doing insurance properly. I say no. If they lose, they lose. I think the people should be guaranteed if they get caught up in a scam, that they'll at least get their money to reinvest again, so the person won't lose out, but the corporation has to lose, and the guy that put that money up for insurance that said that was a valid product has to lose. I think then you have to have some kind of security net underneath for people that lose out in that game too, but not reinsure the investment.
No, not reinsure. He did. Lewis was the voice of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to He wanted to reinsure the insurance industry.
I understand that, and I think there's a problem in that, Harold.
Yeah.
The problem is that if nobody has skin in the game, if the insurance companies know that the big guy will bail us out, they'll take these risks, and this is what's happened in the stock market. There was risk upon risk.
Well, you got to have a system where it's possible for the mass of the people to have a piece of capital asset that is paid for out of the future earnings. That is, we make a commitment with the future. That's what investment is. That's what it is. Now you got to get that. If it's good for the rich, it's good for everybody to get into and have the means for creating a world where everybody is a have.
Good stock market people, and
they got all the influence.
They got all the knowledge of exactly where to invest and how to invest.
Yeah.
But this is going to change. I mean, with this, one of the exponential businesses in the labs, they come labs. They're going to have labs there. They're going to have crowdfunding labs. They're going to have investment consultants that are going to tell you that these are the future companies that will be big, and these are the other future companies that are fail.
Listen, okay, this is really interesting. One of the troubles is, I'm afraid, we're going to have to call it off because we're coming to the end of the time available to us for this. We got talking. Sorry we weren't able to do it properly. Just to let it be known again, we're trying to highlight the contributions of the fact that this exists on the 7th of June, this consideration for a lot of these things by the people, exponential financial part of the group of people who are understanding the implications of what's going on. And thank you very much for that. And thank Ray and Dumontes and all these people and you for thinking about these things, and for you in the audience for viewing. Sorry we've run out of time, but we've run out of time. We got to say goodbye a little earlier than we'd like. But thank you for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. So thanks again very, very much indeed. And we'll be coming back tomorrow.
It's been my pleasure, Harold.
Yeah. So if they could run the graphic maybe, and then we could close down. Are we able to run the graphics or not?